And we are live, I hope. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. Happy Saturday around the world. I've gotten quite a few questions from before the stream, people who responded to my emails on my email list who had questions and wanted to hear me talk about their journey, their problems. So I'm going to be answering a couple of those first and also answering questions from the live chat. So anything that you want to talk about, any victories you want to share, any problems that you want advice on, put them in that chat and I'll try to get to every single one. We'll see if we can do it. But first of all, let me know if you can see me and hear me so I know I'm not talking into the wind. First question that I want to answer is, what do you think about Audible erotic books like podcasts, ASMR stuff, storytelling, etc.? Would you count this material as a relapse? Only you can answer what's a relapse for you, number one, but that having said that, if you were my client, I would probably lean towards yes, this is a relapse, because for most of the people that I work with, most of the people who are recovering from either an addiction to porn or any other porn-induced problems like sexual dysfunctions, they are going to have a higher sensitivity to artificial sexual content than someone who never developed any of those problems. For someone who listens to an erotic ASMR occasionally, but who doesn't binge on it, who doesn't get caught up in using more content than they plan to, or it doesn't cause problems in their lives or in their relationships or in their sexual function, maybe that's fine. But for someone who has gotten far enough that they're talking to me, usually moderation is no longer an option. And it's best to avoid anything artificial like this that is going to give you that sexual rush, that feeling of sexual excitement that's not a real person, that you're interacting with in real life. This also applies to things like non-sexual or non-nude photographs and written stories as well. Would seeing my partner without clothes on, for example on FaceTime, slow down the healing process, bearing in mind I'm not aroused anymore by pictures and video online? So questions like this are in a gray area that I often get questions about. Maybe I'm long distance with my partner, or we just interact in a sexual way through our devices, and that helps us feel closer to each other. You just have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is this adding more to my life, or is it taking away more from my life? Is it making my life harder? Is it giving me more urges? Or is it a good thing because it's bringing my partner and I closer together, and it's making me more excited when I do see my partner and I'm able to have an amazing, satisfying, intimate experience with them? If your answers to these questions are clear, then you should have your answer about whether or not this is okay for you. As for, if you're not touching yourself to it, if you're not getting aroused to it more than, at least a little bit, it's probably not something that's going to set back your sexual dysfunction recovery, if that specifically is what you're asking about. Hey, Between, welcome. I'm going to answer your question since you posted it first in the chat. 10 years of intermittent relapse. I recently moved from my family home, and I haven't used in my new place. Any thoughts on changing environment to help remove the addiction? Is there anything more that I can do? The addiction started in my family home nearly 25 years ago, and I found it triggering to live there again. But I don't want to get complacent or assume an environmental change will solve it. Well, environment does make a big difference. You hit the nail on the head with that. It's a matter of cues. If we're in a place that we associate with a certain behavior, we're going to be thinking about that behavior. We're going to be cued to automatically start acting out that behavior just by being there. And it can be the people that we're around as well as the physical objects or the location. And going to a new environment is not going to completely wipe your slate clean. It's not going to make you a non-addict. It's not going to cure you of an addiction, but it is an excellent opportunity for a fresh start to design and curate and cultivate new, healthier habits that you'll associate with this new environment and not start associating pornography and any other addictive, compulsive behavior with this new environment. You should be careful about that because you don't want to make your new environment an environment that you associate with relapse as well. And it's not that if you just do it, once, or if you have a little slip, that it's going to be tainted forever. But the more you do, of course, the more you open up that door of possibility in your mind that this is a place where I look at porn. And those thoughts and those beliefs are so incredibly important. They make up our reality. If you are someone who believes that you're capable of something, you very well might be capable of that. But if you don't believe that you're capable of it, you almost certainly aren't, at least as long as you hold on to that belief. So in this time, there are other things that you should be doing. I think you've been following my channel for a while, so you're probably aware of a lot of those. But go to the link in my description of this video down below for links to all of my resources, a lot of them free, and you'll get a better idea of what you can be doing, what recovery work you can be doing to move forward in a positive way, rather than just waiting for time to go by, waiting for the addiction to fade into the background, because recovery is an active process, not a passive one. Coleman asks, "Hey Noah, I'm currently going through a heavy flatline. Is there a way to make it end quicker? And is it then, after it ends, that I will be healed?" Flatlines can be rough. I empathize with you. I didn't experience extremely long flatlines myself, but I did experience heavy ones, or at least one. And for me, my first flatline didn't really happen until I was about 8 months into my recovery. And it was a bit more than a month that it lasted. Just felt like my sexuality was gone. My sex drive was completely gone. And some other symptoms as well. And yes, after that flatline ended, I personally saw a lot of improvement. And this is a pattern I've seen repeat for others as well. And that's what has led me to believe, I don't have conclusive evidence for it, but I believe that during the flatline, that's the body's way, the brain's way of healing. We shut things down. It's like if you have an injury to your wrist, you might have a lot of inflammation and pain. And that inflammation and pain, it keeps you from using your wrist or your hand. It keeps it immobilized. It's like the body's own cast. And while it's immobilized, the body can work on healing. And I see the flatline as sort of the same thing, but on a neurological sense. It shuts down your sex drive and your sexual responses in order to heal that part of your brain, that part of yourself. And if you just let it happen, let it run its course, and then start slowly becoming sexually active again, like going on dates, or if you have a partner, starting to kiss and ask your partner to touch you again, but not necessarily putting on a lot of pressure to jump right back into intercourse right away. Then you can heal much like you would with that wrist. Once the pain starts to go down, the swelling starts to go down, you start to use it a little bit more, but you don't just go right back into the gym, lifting weights, using dumbbells, or doing the same things that cause you to injure your wrist in the first place. So is there anything that you can do to make it last less long? I would say try to cultivate gratitude for it as much as possible. I know that's easier said than done, but a lot of people who are stuck in the relapse cycle are envious of you. I've heard a lot of guys say, "I wish I was on a flatline right now. That would make it so much easier. I could finally have some peace of mind, not being constantly plagued by urges. I could just focus on the rest of my life." So take this as an opportunity to focus on the rest of your life. How can you set yourself up to have everything else handled, or, have other things in your life to be grateful for when your flatline does end and your sex drive returns? If it has been, 6 months or more, 8 months, 10 months, a year of flatline, then if I was your coach and we talked more and I got to know your situation better, I might recommend pushing yourself a little bit more. If you're in a relationship, Even if you're not feeling it at the beginning, push yourself to be a little bit more intimate. Talk with your partner about this process. Open yourself up to those opportunities to allow yourself to be aroused, even if you don't feel desirous of it in the moment. And sometimes in a very long flat line like that, your body needs a little push. It's like same thing with that wrist. 8 months in, maybe you still don't feel the desire to use that wrist. Maybe it's still in pain, or it's more about the fear of that pain or the fear of re-injuring that wrist. And you maybe have to push yourself a little bit to start doing rehab. Rehab often hurts. It often doesn't feel natural or good right away. But if you engage in that therapeutic activity and do it at a sane and reasonable level, not pushing yourself too far or too fast, it's an essential part of the healing process. So another question from before the stream. Will being intimate with my partner and her touching me slow down the process of recovery? Usually the opposite is the case. Unless your body really isn't ready, maybe it's just hasn't been long enough for your body to resensitize. Maybe you're still in a heavy flatline and it's only a month in. In that case, pushing yourself to try to be intimate or sexual too soon is probably not going to help. And if it creates more negative emotional association with sex because you're so disappointed in yourself, or you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, or your partner is disappointed, then it can actually set you back in that way. It can also set you back if you're able to kind of sort of get aroused, but you're really pushing yourself. Maybe you're fantasizing about something else while you're having an intimate connection with your partner. And this is going to set you back as well. If you're not able to achieve and enjoy an easy erection, with your partner, you don't necessarily need to stop everything, but you shouldn't push yourself to orgasm or shouldn't push yourself to intercourse at that time. But in general, rewiring, having intimacy, having sexual touch, when it feels good, when it feels natural, when it's something you desire, is good for the process of sexual dysfunction recovery. Questions are coming in. Good to see it. Good afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Every time I recover from PIED and then I masturbate to a porn photo, I go back in the flatline and withdrawal symptoms. Insomnia, mood swings, porn thoughts. How is this possible? It was just a photo. I understand your frustration. And, if you were someone who had never looked at porn and you just looked at a photo and masturbated to it, it probably would not set you back into a flat line, into those withdrawal symptoms. It might get you started on a new compulsion. It might be a slippery slope into wanting to look at it more and more like it was when you first started using. But because you have that history of use, you have that history of addiction or PIED or whatever other problems it caused you, and you recovered or you were in the process of recovery, your brain is quite a lot more sensitive to that than it would be otherwise. The image that's coming to my mind right now, and I don't actually know if this is medically accurate, but there's a movie called Thank You for Smoking. A great movie, by the way. Aaron Eckhart, I think, is the star of that movie, and he's a speaker, like an apologist for the tobacco industry. And some angry opponents of his kidnap him and cover his body in nicotine patches and give him an overdose of nicotine, basically. And afterwards, he's lucky to survive, and his doctor tells him that if you smoke another cigarette, if you get any nicotine in your system, it could kill you. You're very sensitive to it now. And I see it sort of like that. It's not going to kill you, but because you've had such an overload of pornography throughout the years, you're very sensitive to it now, and especially during recovery. And any little taste could set you back into those flatline symptoms, into those withdrawal symptoms. And so it's very important that you get to a point where you can make a full, committed 100% decision and be at peace with never going back to porn. And, you're not just moving away from porn, you're moving toward a lifetime of healthy sexual connection, in real relationships with someone who cares about you and whom you care about. So I hope that that's a decision that you can get to with 100% conviction, because that will make it easier. And you're not missing out on anything by not looking at porn anymore. How many days on average does it take to feel desire other than one's sexual in nature? Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand what you're asking. It sounds like you're to the point where the only strong feelings you have, or the only strong desires at least, are sexual ones. That's because you have sensitized yourself to sexual stimuli through long-term porn use and desensitized yourself to the joy and stimulation and interest of other things in your life, like career ambitions or schoolwork or friendships, conversations, traveling, learning new things, reading books, all those things that can be so much fun and can give you such a sense of interest and satisfaction and fulfillment, maybe now do nothing for you. How many days on average does it take? I'd say most people within 90 days, 3 months of being completely abstinent from porn and porn substitutes get to the point where they're starting to at least rediscover those interests and those desires for non-sexual things in their lives. And I can tell you, for me, that happened a lot sooner than 90 days. I started to rediscover my interest and joy and everything else in my life a lot sooner. And I think that was partly because I was in the pink cloud when I first started my recovery, which is a different topic that we can talk about later if someone asks about it. But give yourself the chance, my friend, to find out who you are, who you can be, what life can feel like without porn. No matter how long it takes, it's not going to be that long in comparison with the rest of your life. I used to masturbate with a non-erect penis for 2 years. Because of this, maybe my brain thinks that I don't need an erection to ejaculate, and whenever I'm aroused, I don't get an erection. I've been on NoFap for 10 months. How should I solve this issue? Please help. I actually have to add that I also never watched porn. I've always masturbated to any image or just fantasy, and now I'm finding it a little hard to stay away from sexual thoughts on NoFap. Okay, so it's a bit of a non conventional case for this channel, someone who didn't ever watch porn, who just had a masturbation habit and masturbated without an erection for 2 years. And if you were my client, I'd ask you a lot more questions. I'd ask you what happened at the beginning of those 2 years. Did you have strong erections up until a moment when suddenly you lost them? Was it something that gradually happened? How did that habit of masturbating without an erection start? Another question I would ask is, do you ever have full erections? Maybe it's not when you're masturbating, but at least like if you wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning, do you notice that you have a full erection? If you don't remember having a full erection in recent memory or in the last couple of years, I'd say definitely get yourself checked out by a urologist. Ask for as many tests as they can do. Try to get to the bottom of what's going on here, because it's likely that it's not just related to your masturbation habit, but there might be something else going on physically or medically as well. And even if you do get full erections at night or in the morning, but you just don't when you are aroused or when you're masturbating, it's still worth going to get checked out by a urologist and just make sure that there's not something else going on that you're not aware of. And if it truly is just related to habit, and for some reason you got into that habit years ago and just reinforced it over and over, well, the very most important thing, if that is the case, is to stop reinforcing that habit, stop masturbating, and especially stop reaching orgasm if you don't have a full erection, or at least, a partial erection. The orgasm should wait till you have a full erection, but you can start to touch yourself gently with a partial erection, of course. And if you do get erections in the morning or when you wake up at night, perhaps take advantage of those times to start reinforcing a different habit, a different behavior loop, where you touch yourself when you already have a full erection and you are able to keep that erection through arousal and self stimulation. That could help as well. But again, I highly encourage you to get checked out by a doctor, ask for, go do some research about the different tests that can be done. Doppler ultrasound is probably one that you want to have done. And depending on whether or not you know you get nocturnal erections, they can do a test, like a sleep test, where they determine if you do get erections at night while you're sleeping. Okay, I've been on no PMO for 2 weeks now. While reading your book, I noticed how you said that doing no PMO won't solve your problems, but will open the door that you can then walk through and solve your problems. I'm currently just doing no PMO and exercising. Is there something else I should do to accelerate my recovery? I don't have a girlfriend. All right. Well, it sounds like you're in the middle of reading my book, so definitely keep going with the book. There's a lot of suggestions in there for what else you can be doing in terms of recovery work. And a lot of recovery work, it's not just about getting away from porn, it's about building a life that's going to be satisfying for you. So, as much as possible, identifying your real needs and meeting those in real satisfying ways rather than just trying to numb yourself to them or escape the pain of not having those needs fulfilled is going to be extremely important. The more you fill up your life and make your life something that's satisfying and that you wake up each morning looking forward to getting started on your day, that's going to make you so much more resilient to going back and using porn again. There's a lot more that you can do, of course, specific to urge proofing yourself. You can change your environment like we talked about earlier. You can set up protections on your devices. You can get an accountability partner. You can come up with a plan for how to handle urges in the moment, and you can train and practice that plan so that you know exactly what to do in those moments. You can join a group, a support and discussion group like the one that I run. Check that out in the link below. My link tree has a link to a page on my website where I describe that group and the different levels that you can join at. It's honestly probably one of the biggest and best steps that you can take on this journey is to get yourself into a group like that, either mine or another, where you can feel like you have some camaraderie, where you have teammates around you, you have other people who are going along the same path toward many similar goals, and no longer have to feel like you're alone in this. Why can I have an erection by myself without watching porn or fantasizing, but when with a girl, I can't have an erection, not even while stimulating myself? That to me is a problem that I had as well during recovery, and it sounds like performance anxiety. And I bristled when I was first looking up, perhaps like looking for the cause of why I could not get an erection with a partner. And all I could find back then in like 2008 was that it was probably performance anxiety because I felt like it was something more than that. But I didn't know what it was until much later when I realized it was porn-induced ED. But I also developed performance anxiety through the process of failing to have sex many times and feeling disappointed in myself, ashamed of myself, afraid of embarrassed about letting down my partners. And when you have all of those negative emotions associated with sex and intimacy, it's very difficult not to develop performance anxiety. So I really recommend you go to my website or search my YouTube channel for Overcoming Sexual Performance Anxiety, a video I made a few years ago that will walk you through the steps that you can take with your partner, or even if it's a more casual partner, to help yourself overcome that hurdle so you can remove that barrier and allow yourself to get aroused and enjoy sex when your body is ready, when you've recovered enough. It's a good sign that you are able to get aroused and get a full erection by yourself without even fantasizing or looking at any sexual imagery. That's a great sign. And now, what you can do actively, not just waiting for time to pass, is learn about overcoming that anxiety portion And there are some very specific actionable steps you can take to help yourself with that. So there's a lot of hope. That's actually a better position to be in than someone who's not anxious, but their body is just not responding. Because for them, it could still be 6 months, 8 months until they recover enough that their body is physically ready for sex. But for you, if you take these action steps and you commit to this, it could be a week, 2 weeks before you're having great sex. I've been watching fetish porn for 9 years. The genre is not related to anything resembling sex. I'm afraid I will never be cured of my PIED because my only sexual outlet has been tied to this fetish. Yeah, that's a tough position to be in. And I've had clients in a similar position to that. And I don't know if like that's been your sole sexual interest your whole life, or maybe you did have a more broad or vanilla sexual interest, but quickly escalated to that specific fetish. But either way, things aren't hopeless. I don't know what your fetish is, but it's possible that you'll find a partner that you can explore that fetish with. It's also very possible if you stop using pornography and stop continuing to overstimulate yourself with that fetish, that you'll get some more sensitivity back. And a lot of people don't understand that if they have a healthy level of sensitivity, they should be able to get and maintain an erection and reach orgasm just touching themselves and enjoying the physical sensations. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is, what your fetishes are. You don't have to think about anything or look at anything or fantasize about anything, just enjoying the physical sensations. And if you get to that point, it's very, very possible that you'll be able to enjoy sexual intimacy, vanilla sexual intimacy with a partner as well, because you'll be sensitive enough that you'll just be enjoying the closeness and the physical sensations. And it's not something that you'll always have to incorporate the fetish in order to become aroused. I don't want you to give up hope on being able to experience that vanilla sexual intimacy, because I've seen a lot of people in a situation similar to yours get to that point. Now, it's not to say that you need to cut your fetish out of your life entirely. I don't know what it is. I don't know how feasible it is to find a partner you can explore that with, but it is possible to have a healthier relationship to that fetish. At least it has been for a lot of my clients, where they can have that be part of their sex life. But it shouldn't be something that you absolutely need in order to get aroused or to have an enjoyable sexual experience. I'm a few days into the reboot phase. Would having sex be detrimental at this point? I'm currently dating a girl I really like. So, I don't know a lot about your situation. Maybe you've had crippling PIED in the past. If that's the case and it's only been a few days, your body's probably not ready. But if it's been a more mild PIED, or you don't even know if you do have PIED, it's not necessarily the wrong choice to have sex or to try intimacy. But I'd recommend that you watch or read that piece on overcoming sexual performance anxiety as well, because it has a lot of tips for how to start rewiring in a way that's going to be comfortable for both you and your partner, how to talk to your partner about setting up expectations, how to take the pressure off of things, how to just relax and explore and follow your desires and have a good time, regardless of how your body is responding. And those are skills that we can all use on this journey, especially during the rewiring phase. So if you do choose to be intimate, to have sex, my biggest recommendations are try not to make it like a goal, like set it up as we are going to have intercourse tonight, rather just like have it be more free flowing, more fun, no expectations, no goals. We'll see what happens. We'll just focus on having a good time and enjoying each other. And if we get to intercourse and we're enjoying it, great. If not, there's no rush. And if you have that attitude, you're a lot less likely to be disappointed or to disappoint your partner. And listen to your body would be my other big point of advice. If your body is not responding, if it feels like it has to be forced, or you have to like think about porn in order to get and maintain arousal, then that's a strong sign you do need more time rebooting before you're trying sex. Hi, Noah. What is your opinion on 12-step programs? I did find it helpful, but I just feel like they are brainwashing us to be in their program forever. Is it true that I have to be in a fellowship forever? That's a really good question. I think those are two separate questions. So I'm going to answer the second question first, actually. Will I have to be in a recovery program, in a group, in a fellowship forever? And my answer is not necessarily, but I'm going to use a metaphor that I often use in my group and in my courses as well, is that recovery is like learning to ride a bike. When you're first learning how to ride a bike, it's rough. You're very unconfident, very shaky. You're probably going to fall. You're probably going to injure yourself. As you build a little bit of confidence and skill, it starts to get easier, but like hills are very difficult. Your body's not used to it. Your muscles aren't used to it. You're, very alert, very in the moment, kind of scared that things are going to go wrong. But over time, you keep riding and you build confidence. Eventually, you get to a flat section and you can just sort of relax and enjoy the scenery. You get some downhill slopes and you don't even have to pedal at all. But if at any point, even when it gets really easy, you just close your eyes or you're like looking at the clouds and not watching where you're going, you can still crash. And a group that you go to regularly, whether it's every day or once a week or a couple times a month, can help you keep your eyes open. Stay aware of the path that you're on. Stay aware of the dangers so that you don't just get complacent and start looking off into the sky and end up in the ditch bloody. I've seen people on very long streaks, a year or more, fall into that trap, start opening that door to porn again, relapsing, and bringing back all the problems they worked so hard to heal from. And I don't want that for you. And what helps a lot of people avoid that is being part of a group. Do you need a group or a fellowship? I don't think so. But you have to find a way to keep yourself on that path you chose for yourself. That can be, you can course correct on your own, but it's often easier to course correct with someone else. That could be an accountability partner or a friend you just talk to about this journey occasionally or regularly. But yeah, that's my answer to that. As for 12-step program in specific, 12-step programs often offer a lot of value to people, but at least from my perspective and in my opinion, a lot of that value is just in the community. It's feeling like you have a team around you, like you have that camaraderie, you have connection, you have accountability, and 12-step programs aren't alone in offering those things. And actually, as far as the research shows, as much as I've been able to learn, 12-step programs do not show significantly higher rates of success in terms of remaining sober in the long term than no intervention at all. And I know a lot of people have seen great success by being a part of a 12-step program, and that they might be angry to hear me say that, and they might swear by the 12 steps and swear that, if you commit to this, it can change anyone's life. But as far as I've seen, the research and the statistics just don't show that joining a 12-step program is going to be more effective than any other kind of intervention or even no intervention at all. That doesn't mean that you can't find success there, but you can find success with other methods as well. Thanks for the happy birthday for later this month. uh, yeah, it's been actually not 10 years. I think I started my own journey of recovery January of 2014. And yeah, so if I had stayed clean ever since then, I would be coming up on 10 years, but I didn't. I had my own relapses. First relapse like 8 months into my journey, somewhere around there, and then struggled on and off for a year, a little bit more than a year after that. So not coming up on 10 years sober, but it has been a wild ride since that first discovery of Gary Wilson's The Great Porn Experiment video. Changed my life forever. All right, back to the questions I got before the stream. Hey Noah, how you doing? I'm on day 29 of NoFap and I was wondering something. Lately I've been fantasizing a lot and I try my best to send those thoughts away. Could this impact my progress? Thank you. Very natural, very normal to be having those intrusive fantasy thoughts during recovery. It's not something that's going to stop your recovery, but of course, the more you indulge in it, the harder you're going to make things on yourself in general. There are healthy ways to engage with fantasy, and healthier fantasies, more realistic and grounded fantasies that you can cultivate. And I talk about that more in my video and article, Is Masturbation Healthy or Not? So you can check out that video if you want to learn more. But as far as fantasizing, especially if they're pornified fantasies or intrusive fantasies that you just don't want to be having, the one thing that can help you most to cope with that is practicing mindfulness and meditation. And that practice will teach you that skill of being able to observe and be aware of what's going on in here and not get swept away by it, not get emotionally attached to it. You can build a bit of separation between yourself and your thoughts and your emotions and that stream of consciousness going through your head. And you can get to the point and practice that skill of recognizing that, seeing what's happening, and just letting it go. And then gently redirecting your focus back to what you're doing in real life or thinking about something else. And that skill is going to help you so much if you can develop that skill, especially with something difficult like this, where it's a very compelling thought and feeling, that fantasy that's going through your head. You can apply that skill anywhere in your life. And during work, if you're focusing on a project and you have some distraction come up, your phone pings or something, you can mindfully be aware, okay, I'm tempted to look at my phone right now, but this is really important. So I'm just going to let that desire go. And I'm going to refocus on what I'm doing. And that ability is going to help you so much in life, not just with recovery. I'm an 18-year-old, heavily addicted to porn since I've been 10 or so. Ever since I quit porn, I've had the lowest and weirdest libido. It's been at least 8 months. I haven't been outside much since quitting, so not much opportunity for rewiring. I was wondering what the timeline for my libido looks like. Once I'm around women for a while, will it just noticeably come back, or does it even require being around real women? I don't know if I've ever had a normal libido, as it's always been tied to porn. I'm very worried to have this problem at this age. I feel like I'm missing out. Thank you. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. If you've been porn free, you've been on this journey following the guidelines for 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and you're still in a flatline, your libido still feels like it's missing, that can be a time in which you start gently pushing yourself a little bit and giving yourself opportunities to be aroused. You have to be careful with that, of course, because if all you know, your whole sexual life is porn, then opening up that door and trying to push yourself to be a little bit more sexual and to invite arousal can invite temptation to go back to porn as well. But one way you can do this is just by, putting yourself around real women more often. It doesn't have to be in a dating context, just going out, socializing, joining new groups, joining an exercise class, anything like that is going to give you that opportunity to be aroused because you're just around attractive people and close to them, you're talking to them, you're interacting with them, looking into their eyes, maybe touching them in a casual, friendly way. And this is all going to give you that opportunity to start rewiring your brain to be aroused by real people again. You can also, as an option, open yourself up to the possibility of porn-free masturbation with realistic, grounded fantasy, like I mentioned earlier. And if you do that, just watch that video I made first. Is masturbation healthy or not? Hello, Noah. My earlier reboot journey of 2 years was easy, in which I saw morning wood coming back after 2 to 3 months and gradually became hard. All was going great, no anxiety, etc. But after that 2 years, when I again started my porn habit this January, my tastes changed from normal to transsexual porn. I don't know why this happened, but for the next 5 months, I watched it regularly. When I realized that I'm not able to enjoy normal porn anymore, I developed HOCD, severe anxiety, and lack of confidence. Currently, I see a lot less morning wood in this 4.5 months of Reboot. Will it return? Will my anxiety go? I want to be free from these sexual thoughts and OCD thoughts whenever I see any girl. So, a lot to unpack here. You found in your first Reboot journey that changes happened pretty quickly, recovery happened fairly quickly, and you were able to enjoy that recovery. And that's often what I see. The first time someone chooses to stop using porn and recover, as long as they're able to stick to that, they often see changes relatively quickly, within a matter of months, and often don't get stuck in those longer flatlines that plague others. And yet, if they do reopen that door to porn, go back, start using again, start binging, it can maybe even go deeper. Like this person, you can escalate to different kinds of porn than you ever watched before. You can get more severe sexual dysfunction or escalated sexual preferences than ever before. And when you do try to recover again, things take longer, withdrawal symptoms are worse, flatlines last longer. And this is a case of that intermittent use idea that I talk about in these live streams and have talked about on my channel before, wherein your brain can adapt more quickly to the porn-free life if it goes from porn all the time to no porn ever. But if it goes from porn all the time to period of abstinence to relapse to abstinence for a month to binge to, going back and forth, you're telling your brain essentially, even if I go for months without porn is coming back. So don't let go of your wiring for porn. Don't heal, don't change, don't adapt to the porn-free life. And that doesn't mean that if you've been caught in that cycle, you'll never recover. It just means that recovery is likely to take longer than it would have taken if you were able to go from, regular porn user to completely abstinent and clean. And you, sir, should not give up. The changes will happen, but do whatever you can to cultivate that 100% commitment and make sure that you don't go back to porn again and continue that intermittent use cycle. Hi, Noah. Been successfully rebooting for over 3 years. No porn at all, which led to never-ending flatline and death grip syndrome. I landed a relationship 3 years ago. I held off having sex until marriage. After recently marrying, I used meds to achieve an erection because I didn't want to fail on the honeymoon. I don't want to use it as a crutch, but I don't get aroused easily. It makes her upset that I use meds. I feel numb down there. I recently masturbated without porn, but it feels like a setback. How do I find better levels of arousal with my wife and increase sensitivity down there? Yeah, there's a lot to work through. It sounds like a couple of things we've already talked about in this stream. Techniques for overcoming sexual performance anxiety, which I imagine is a factor for you. There's a lot of pressure here. You're already married. You want to live up to her expectations. You want to live up to your own expectations and create a healthy sex life between you. And that's a lot of pressure to work with. So figuring out how to take that pressure away and allow yourselves to just have fun and enjoy each other is going to be big. Number 2, rewiring. Like you need a lot of positive experience of intimacy and sexuality with your wife in order to fully heal. And the only way to do that, of course, is by working on number 1 first and getting that anxiety out of the way. About the meds, it's not 100% black or white, always use meds or never use meds. It's certainly not always use meds. Meds can give you that experience and start to build a little bit of confidence for someone who's never had sex before. But it doesn't address the heart of the matter for most of us, unless there is something physical going on that means you require these medications in order to have a full erection. If you were my client, if we were on a one-on-one session, I would ask you more about that time you masturbated. Was it easy to get and maintain an erection? What were you fantasizing about? Were you fantasizing at all? If it was easy to get and maintain an erection, and you weren't fantasizing about porn, maybe it was grounded, realistic fantasy about your wife, or maybe you were just enjoying the sensations, that's a great sign that your body is ready for sex. But maybe it's more of that mental and emotional thing of there's a lot of anxiety and the rewiring hasn't happened and you just don't associate, real physical human contact with sexual arousal yet. But that's something that can change. Read my book, go through my resources, and if you do want to talk more, I actually recommend that you book a one-on-one session with me because this is a critical time in your life and in your relationship. You've just been married, and right now is when you can cultivate the sexual dynamic between you and your wife that will echo throughout the years to come. And I don't want you to create, a dynamic where there's resentment or embarrassment or a lack of communication. So I do recommend you book a call with me. Hi Noah, I'm on day 46 of NoFap. I have some questions for tomorrow's Q&A. What do I do to stop fantasizing? Already talked about that question, so I'm going to skip it. How does fantasizing affect my recovery? Already talked about that a little bit too. In general, pornified fantasy is going to hold you back. Intrusive thoughts or an overabundance of binging on fantasy, you're thinking about it all the time or every night, that's going to hold you back. But healthy, grounded fantasy that you choose, you decide, I'm going to fantasize now, rather than it being intrusive and taking control and sweeping you away, can be a positive step in recovery. And how did I stop fantasizing during recovery? Well, I didn't ever entirely stop fantasizing, but I didn't allow it to go to the point where it was unhealthy, where it was a slippery slope back to porn. At least, I did for a while, but I got to the point where I was able to tell the difference. And mindfulness helps a lot with that. All right, last question from before the stream, then I'm going to get back to questions in the chat. Last week, I had 3 nighttime ejaculations. It's probably because I'm in my early teenage years, but I don't think having 3 in 1 week is normal. Is this slowing or ruining my recovery? How do I stop them since I feel like my libido has gone low since these things have been happening? You're a young teenager, you're in this recovery. It's not something I would worry too much about. 3 in 1 week is totally normal for some people. It varies wildly. I've had 2 in my life. Some people have them several times a week, and that's normal for them, especially as a young teenager. So I wouldn't worry about it ruining your recovery. One thing that can help is just avoiding sexual fantasy as you're going to sleep. And if you are having a sexual dream and you're able to wake yourself up, you can. But if you can't, if it just happens, don't worry about it. You're young, you're going to be able to recover and you're going to be able to regain a healthy sex drive and healthy sexuality. Just give it time. All right, back to the chat. I'm 20 now and I've been using since 11. I used to like normal stuff alongside my fetish, but those interests dwindled away with time. I'm wondering if you ever heard of someone healing from a similar case. I'm not sure if you are the same guy I answered earlier about the fetish. So that's a good thing that when you started using or you started masturbating or fantasizing, you were thinking about vanilla sexual intimacy. That's a great sign. That means that you most likely can regain that interest in vanilla sex. Will you lose all interest in your fetish? Most likely not. But you don't need to. It's just important to get you to the point where you're sensitive enough that you can enjoy vanilla sexual intimacy and still have the option of exploring that fetish, whatever it is, with your partner in a healthy way, but it doesn't have to dominate your sex drive and your sex life. And yes, I've seen plenty of people in a situation very similar to yours get to that point where they're able to enjoy vanilla sexual intimacy again. What do you think about setting like blockers like screen time and iPhone for restricting adult websites and closing the ability to download new apps? All these protections, they're tools. And the way that I think of it is like these are the fences that you put along like a dangerous mountain path. If you put up those fences, it's going to help people who walk that path, namely you, to keep from accidentally falling over the cliff and falling down the mountain. They're not going to keep you from intentionally jumping the fence. No matter how high or tough you build that fence, if you're determined enough, you're going to find a way around it. You're going to tunnel underneath it. You're going to do something to get across that fence if you really want to. But what it can do is just make the path a little safer for you, make it easier to avoid accidentally falling down that mountain. It's still more important to focus on the path after the fence is built. Just building the fence won't get you to the top of the mountain. You still have to walk that path, but the fence can help. One thing that's even more effective and helpful, I find, usually, than just blockers is accountability. And using accountability software can help a lot with that. Ever Accountable is one that I highly recommend. It's a software you can install on any of your devices, and it takes screen captures of whatever's on your screen every minute or so. And if it detects that you're looking at sexual content, it will send blurred versions of those screenshots as an alert to whoever you've chosen to be your accountability partner, or more than one partner. And if you cultivate a good, helpful accountability relationship, this can be incredibly helpful in just taking the desire away, because you're going to know, I could probably find porn, but then I'd have to talk to my sister about it because she's my accountability partner and she's going to see what I look at. And that can take a lot of the temptation away and just make it easier to stick to your path. Is it a good idea to masturbate to train to last longer? All my life, I've masturbated quickly so I could orgasm fast. Doing that, I now have premature ejaculation. Mentioning I've left porn 5 months ago. Yeah, actually, it can be helpful. It should be to the point where you're able to have a full erection, before you start doing this. But masturbating as a way to train yourself to last longer before you're in a relationship or having sex can be an effective way to help yourself with premature ejaculation that you've trained yourself into. Now, you can set a timer and just tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to reach orgasm until after that timer goes off. And you can practice skills like being in tune with your body, recognizing when you're getting too excited or too tense. You can give yourself a break. You can take deep breaths. You can consciously relax your muscles and relax your body. And by practicing these techniques and others while masturbating, you can train yourself into lasting longer, which can then translate into the bedroom with a partner. And yeah, it does work. You can also practice with a condom, masturbating with a condom to reduce your sensitivity. And there are other techniques as well. I talk about that as well as all the other sexual dysfunctions and how to recover from them in my course called Reboot, Rewire, which you can learn about in the links down below. My PIED is completely cured. Good for you, man. However, when I was rebooting, I used ED meds and no longer need them. I still use them, as it feels like cheating with how many rounds I can go and stay hard. Is this okay? Only you can decide if that's okay for you. I can't tell you that for sure that's going to set you back into a flatline or not. It is possible that if you are using medication to push yourself to have sex more often than your body otherwise would naturally want to do, that you could push yourself back into a flatline or otherwise have other consequences, but it's not guaranteed, could just be fine. If I were you, just me personally, I don't like being on medications. I don't like taking, exogenous pharmaceuticals unless I really need to. So it's not a choice that I would make. But if it's something that you're enjoying and you want to keep doing it, I'm not going to stop you. A lot of questions in here. I'm loving what I'm seeing. If I don't get to your question, sign up for my email newsletter. It's free. You go to the link in my description below, and that's the link tree that I have, and click on to get my free PDF of my ebook, and that will subscribe you to my email newsletter. And then you get updates when my live streams are coming up and you get the chance to ask me questions beforehand, and I prioritize those questions. So if I don't get to your question today and you really want to get it answered, send it to me via email after you subscribe to my email list, and I'll put it on my list to answer next time first. Any book recommendations? I love that question. I love books. um, biggest the books that have had the biggest impact on me this year are first Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. Best book I've ever read on understanding habits, how to build healthy new habits in a sustainable way, and how to disentangle unhealthy habits that you no longer want in your life. And just understanding the fundamentals, the building blocks of human behavior. Great book. Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. And the other one that comes to mind is Feeling Great by Dr. David Burns. This is a book on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Same author who wrote Feeling Good more than 20 years ago, that has had a massive impact on therapy worldwide and therapy practices. And Feeling Great is the follow-up to that, including everything they've learned over the last 20 years. And if you're interested in therapy or just like want to help yourself get out of whatever emotional or psychological rut you're in, it's a great book, both for people who are therapists or studying to be therapists, but also for people who are trying to help themselves. I actually find blockers can cause higher sexual arousal because if you manage to bypass something, the sexual arousal at that point is much higher than it would usually be. Yeah, some people get into that pattern where it becomes part of the ritual of using, is like figuring out how to get around the blockers that you've set up for yourself. And that can become a cycle of relapse in itself. So if you're in that cycle, of course, figure out a way to break that cycle. Either, you know, not using blockers at all, but using accountability software. So you could access porn if you wanted to, but you would know that it wouldn't be a secret, that it wouldn't be in isolation, or using other methods like just focusing on the internal methods of mindfulness and being able to be aware of those thoughts and those feelings and interrupt them, and practicing different techniques to help yourself manage those in the moment, and rather than relying on technological blockers. There's no one size fits all solution, so you're going to have to do some experimentation and figure out what works for you. Can you recover from PIED without exercise and gymnastics? Yes. Yeah. You don't, I mean, exercise is great for you, whatever your preferred form of exercise is, and it probably does help with sex drive, but you don't need it, especially if you're on the younger side of things. You even, if you're very out of shape and you never exercise, your diet is shit, plenty of people like that are still able to have strong erections and have good sex. So it's not something that's absolutely necessary, but it will help you not just with recovery, but in other ways as well. Hello, Noah. My question is about PIED. I've gone a long period without PMO, and I have a strong relapse masturbating, and then I go a long period without pornography. I still have no success in recovery. Do you think this cycle will prolong my full recovery? Will I still be cured? I already cured my PIED once, and now it's taking a long time. So, yeah, if you were my client, again, I'd ask you more questions. I'd ask you, like, was it just one single masturbation session? Did you binge on masturbation? What was your fantasy like? Were you fantasizing about porn? How long have you been porn free? How long did it take you to recover from PIED the first time? I'd have a lot of questions for you. But what I can say from what you wrote is that, masturbation, there are healthier and less healthier ways to do it. As I talk about in that video, is masturbating healthy or not? And especially in recovery, even if you're doing it in a more healthy way, sometimes it can be too much too soon. Sometimes your body's not ready for that. Just like with the wrist, normally it would be healthy to go like do bench presses or something. But if my wrist is recovering from an injury, that might actually set me back and make the injury worse. So yeah, I would need to know more. I would need to talk to you, I think, to really give you accurate information about that question. But don't give up. I've seen plenty of people who thought they were hopeless, who were taking a lot longer than they wanted to heal from PIED, get to that point where they're having amazing, satisfying sex lives. Hi, Noah. I've suffered from a porn addiction for more than 16 years, and recently, within the past 5 years, this addiction escalated to transsexual porn. Does watching porn correlate to what you're into in real life? Yeah, this is a great question. I've talked about this before on the channel. There's a video specifically about straight guys watching transsexual pornography. I think that's the title of the video, so you can search my channel for that. But what I can tell you is that it's very common for people who are porn addicts, who are using regularly throughout the years, to escalate to content or to genres or to sexual, desires or proclivities that they might or even probably never would have discovered or developed if they hadn't been using porn. So it's not like after, however long of being a sexual creature and how like 11 years of using porn that you finally discovered the truth that you're really most into transsexual people and that's like your natural sexuality. That's not necessarily the case. That's probably not the case. What's probably the case is that you are so desensitized to other things and you're hooked on novelty and you're hooked on like the rush of seeing something new and the feeling of it being like kind of bad and like uncertain, and all of that creates a neurochemical cocktail that's exciting and gives you that rush, and that's something that you became hooked on. And by abstaining from porn and allowing yourself to heal, allowing your sensitivity to return, you might find that transsexual people in real life really have no appeal for you, or you might find that you're still interested in them and exploring sexual relationships with people who are transgender, but you don't need to. Like, it's not something that you need, and you could still enjoy a sexual relationship with someone who is cisgendered. So what I recommend you don't do is, in the midst of being a porn addict and using, then push yourself to go out in real life and try to have a sexual experience with someone who's transgendered. I recommend first focusing on being porn free, on recovering, allowing yourself to get back to who you really are and the sexual desires that are true to you rather than ones that you've conditioned into yourself with long-term porn use before you make any decisions like that. Last night I went on a date and I ejaculated in my pants because I had a big erection and I didn't masturbate or have sex. Did I relapse? That does not sound like a relapse to me. No. Sounds like you were excited. You hadn't had an orgasm in a while, and that's not something your body was used to. And you had an ejaculation in your pants. That's not something that I would call a relapse, especially if you weren't, intentionally stimulating yourself. And it sounds like you were on a date with someone that you're really attracted to and are really excited by. So congratulations on that. I hope that you continue having fun together and becoming closer. We're over the hour mark now. I know there are questions I didn't get to. We failed in that goal to answer every single question, but I'll see you again in the next stream. And as I said, email me, get on my email list, and email me your questions if it's important to you that I answer them, and I'll answer them first. I'll prioritize them in the next stream. All right, guys. Thanks for being here with me. See you next time.